Good evening, everyone. This is Rohit Kangsakar, student of postgraduate diploma from Lambton College, Mississauga, and this video is recorded for a podcast related to EDI and B, that is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and Belongingness. So, in this podcast, we will be knowing about how EDI and belongingness is prevailing in the Canadian market. So, for this podcast, I have Mr. Rajendra Shrestha, who has been working in a bank in Canada from last 2 decades. So, we will be knowing about him regarding the EDI practices in the Canadian market and Canadian organization. So, first of all, I would like to thank him for giving us this time and his valuable efforts for the podcast. So thank you, sir, for giving us the time. I'd like to start the podcast by knowing about how EDI is currently prevailing in the Canadian organization.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. These are very important factors in the organization, in the marketplace, especially where we are in the Canadian workforce. We have immigrants coming from all over the world, and the population is so diverse. To be able to capture the market, not only from the organization perspective, also from the business perspective, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongings are very important, right? So diversity meaning it defines the differences in people, whether they are their race, their ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, their ability, whereas the equity means the fair treatment, equal access and opportunity. And the inclusion is about creating an environment where people feel respected and supported. And the belonging is also a feeling of acceptance, which cannot be achieved without having diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these are really important in the organization, and because of let's say how the population we have, the diversity we have, and also you need to have the group of employees who are satisfied, who are motivated, who are proactive and innovative in order to sustain in the marketplace. And if you can't have that kind of employee, you cannot retain the employee, then you won't be successful. And in order to be successful and in order to retain diverse group of employees, you have to invest in a diverse DEI and B, right? So
So how DEI and B initiatives affect the workplace culture or the employee morale, and how do you think that it will affect the workplace culture?
So it creates a strong bond among the employees. It also helps to foster a better culture in organization. So for example, if I had, let's say, I just want to give an example. If I'm at my workplace, if I feel that my opinions are not considered there and I'm not respected, what will happen? I would probably thinking more about I want to find another job. I'll be looking for some other job, maybe within the organization or outside the organization. But my focus or my energy will be going towards finding another job than thinking about how do I do this job better, right? So that's where the importance comes in, and in terms of retention too. And maybe we may have our best employees in the organization, but whatever they're doing, they're not feeling respected. They probably try to move to another companies. That's why I would say it's an important piece.
So you were working for 2 decades in the Canadian market. what type of like obstacles did you find it to create an inclusive environment where people from various backgrounds come together?
One of the, I think one of the biggest obstacle that comes into my mind is the unconscious bias. At this point of time, organizations are investing a lot of money, and they're also investing on the EDI B, but then the unconscious bias still exists. So until so we have everyone has bias. When we have a bias, we make a decision based on our bias, and there are known bias, conscious bias, which probably is not that difficult to fight with, because you know what's happening, you can see, and you can create a program or find a way to fight and make sure that there's no bias. But what about the unconscious bias? Unconscious bias is the one you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I may be doing a lot of stuff in a day to day, and or maybe saying the things, right? But without knowing it, and that's where the problem comes in. So someone has to figure it out, or in order to fight the unconscious bias. But but that also a little bit difficult, because what happens is someone has to tell you that you have that kind of bias, and it's not easy to say. People get people get defensive. Because of that, we need the person itself be aware of having those unconscious bias, and then these things come from like a lack of awareness, especially from the people in the leadership role or an executive, and this is the thing. This is the barrier I think we have to break, and then this would be probably the biggest obstacle I can think of.
So how managers can take part in celebrating the DEI in the company, or how can they play an important role in promoting DEI in the organization? What are your insights on that?
So definitely managers have a very big role to play in order to drive the efforts on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They definitely have a larger role to play, and the best way to help is them being as an ally. So allyship is very important. So allies are generally the people who will advocate for you. So in an organization where people are from different race, from diverse type of people, they may not be able to speak up, maybe because of their position. Some people are introvert, some people are afraid of the consequences, and what they need is the allies who will support them and who will also advocate for them, and not only when they are there in a group, but also outside of the group. For example, if a manager has a group, he or she have a group team meeting, there, and someone says something maybe inappropriate or maybe not respectful, that's the time managers can step up and say, hey, you know what, probably this is not appropriate way to deal with this kind of thing, or you have to be respectful of some person. That's the internal environment, but in the same time, when the time comes for the opportunities, a promotion or something, and that person also works as an advocate of saying that, I have this person in my team who is really great, and then that kind of support is very important, right? So that's where the managers can play the role. Like when you say managers, they one is a group manager, like team manager, but in the same time the leaders are also the senior leaders are also part of the management. They also can create policies where diversity is reflected in their like hiring process, promotion process, um, could be education, whatever it could be, right? So they play a big role.
So like you being a team leader, you being a team manager, how what are your takes on like making employees more valued or like accepted in the team or in the organization? How can employees be feel safe, or like how can employees feel um, well received, or working in a good environment?
Yeah. Um, so I think the first thing you have to be is you have to be truthful, and you also have to be you have to have that mindset to accept. So that's the first thing to do. If you are not proactive, if you're not thinking about being like, vulnerable or being actively asking the questions, then it kind of becomes difficult, right? So there are a couple of things you can do just to make sure that you are actually contributing to bringing the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace, and supporting others are the fight against your unconscious bias. At the same time, also advocating um, for, for your people. Um, I think you must be willing to identify your biases. You must be willing to review your decision. You also need to talk to other people who doesn't look like you, who doesn't behave like you, um, and maybe they are from different age group or different personality, right? So you have to be in a conversation with them as much as you can, or maybe every interaction, let's say. So that's how you develop the awareness. So awareness is important, and once you do that, I think it helps you to reduce your bias, because now when you talk to the people and when they talk about their identity, the way they do, and then you will probably understand, oh, you know what, they have a skill, they know how to do the work. So, and in the same, when you do that, the employee or your people who are you talking to or you're interacting with, they will also feel saying that, oh, you know what, this person is actually taking interest on my identity, what I do, what my skills are, right? And that's how you bring that motivation or like good culture in a team, right?
So like talking about EDI furthermore, so we often hear that we have to like practice EDI in the workplace, but according to you, are you are you convinced with the overall market about the policies regarding EDI, how well it is set by the company, or how much serious are the companies regarding the EDI practices according to you?
I can't speak for every organization, but the larger organizations are getting more seriously. The smaller organizations, I'm not sure. I don't have visibilities. And then they may also have some resource problem too. They're a small company. Like resource could be the skills, the expertise, or even the money, right? But larger organizations are pretty serious because there are so many competitions, a lot of competitions, and they wanted to grow the market share. They wanted to grow in the market. They wanted to have more customers. So if you wanted to have more customers in a diverse area, you wanted to retain the people or bring the people who are also diverse, which is important. So that's why I think they're serious now. So I will give an example. For example, if I wanted to buy a service or get a service from a company, my preference will be I will choose the organizer. There may be like more than one company giving the same service, but my preference will be looking at the companies who aligns with my value, like who have a similar value as I have. Then I would probably go to that company for my service, right? So that means the company also has to retain or keep the employees of diverse group. Mm, from various perspective, I'm whenever I go into the branches, or if I take the example of the bank, when I go to the branches, you know, I probably will be willing to do my transaction where I can speak my language, or the person I'm dealing with just looks like me, right? And then there's a less chances of intimidation, or less chances of misunderstanding, and at the same time, uh, that person will know my need because of the similar culture. So because of that, the companies are also serious about the creating a diverse workplace, and it makes sense, right? So from that's a from keeping and gaining the market share or keeping the customer happy. But if you go inside the organization, so now what happens is, in order to keep the diverse employee team in your organization, you have to do something. You have to keep them happy. You have to keep them motivated. You have to make them happy that they also provide a better customer service. And then, if you want to keep them happy, if you want to retain them, then you have to have that policy to accommodate everyone's differences.
Yeah,
right?
So finally, for the podcast, how do you see that EDI will evolve in the coming years, considering the social and economic factors which comes along with it? What are your insights on that?
How it's going to
Evolve in the next few years?
Yeah, there's always something new happening, right? We've started talking about diversity a long time ago, but then how that diversity looked a long time ago has changed now. Like before, I think we only talk about the diversity, having a diverse group of employees, diverse customer, but then the equity and inclusion wasn't there. I think after diversity we talked about equity, but then we were not talking about inclusion, and then now we start talking about the belonging. These are all the this concept evolving, in last few years, right? So yeah, things will change. There will always be something new coming up. The human nature is very complex, and you address one thing and there's a new thing comes up. This will it's not easy to say at this point of time, but definitely new things will come up, new concept will come up. People have new demands, and then organization will change accordingly to accommodate all those needs, right? Human needs. Yeah. But at this point, it's exactly it's difficult to say exactly what would that evolve and look like. Right?
Yeah. So. Okay. This much. These were the questions for the podcast. I'd like to thank him for giving us the time to share his experiences, knowledge throughout these years, and give us valuable takeaways and insights about the Canadian market regarding EDI. This much for the podcast. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.